Welcome to the Hawkins Observer, a podcast where two half-lifelong friends recap and analyze every episode of Stranger Things as we prepare for the release of the final season this November.
As always, we'll give you a scene-by-scene recap discussing the plot and developments, as well as sharing our thoughts, memories, and reactions.
In this episode, we pick up where we left off as 11 re-enters the party. The finale is upon us, as this will be the end of season 2 as we wrap up all these loose ends.
So we'll get right into it. Turn up the heat, get off your feet, and dance with us to season 2, episode 9, the finale, The Gate.
Speaking of the gate, I hope there's nothing keeping you or blocking you from hitting that like button and subscribe button. And
Easy peasy.
I told my mom that she really shouldn't watch these episodes, so we're gonna need all y'all to comment and pitch in on the comments because yeah, I don't think my mom could handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, give us
But
your comments. I mean, we say some things that might be controversial or that you might disagree with or whatever.
yeah,
Let us know what you think.
yeah.
Especially let me know what you think of Chris's haircut.
Hey, I'm working on the bowl. I just missed Halloween, but I think I can maintain this for a year and do the Will Byers bowl cut.
Love it. Yeah, his bowl gets bowlier as the seasons go.
Bullier. That's so true.
All right, like, comment, and subscribe, and here we go. All right, we're at the buyer's house immediately after the end of the last episode. Mike and Eleven hug, and Mike tells Eleven that he never gave up on her. She tells him that she heard his radio calls. And Mike's, for the past 353 days, they say. And Mike is confused. He asks why she never told him. And Hopper chimes in from the background and says, because I wouldn't let her. And
Mm,
Mike realizes that Hopper was hiding her and he calls him out for it.
mm-hmm,
He begins yelling at Hopper, but Hopper grabs Mike and takes him into the bedroom and says, let's talk alone.
mm-hmm,
Mike is hot.
mm,
Hopper explains that he kept her safe by protecting her. And Mike does not understand at all. Hopper asks him to understand to see it from his perspective, and Mike just begins going crazy on Hopper, calling him names, cursing at him, and punching him. Um, Mike is furious. He finally just breaks down in tears as Hopper pulls him close and hugs him.
mm-hmm,
Mike and Hopper are just hugging at the closed bedroom door as Hopper says, "You're okay, kid, and I'm sorry."
mm,
Mike just breaks down. Back in the living room, Dustin and Eleven and Lucas are hugging as they are being reunited. Eleven notices Dustin's teeth. Dustin's very proud of those. Max
oh,
finally is there. Max introduces herself to Eleven, but Eleven just ignores her, walks right past, and walks right up to hug Joyce. Joyce is very happy to see Eleven as well.
mm-hmm,
Joyce takes Eleven in to see Will, and Eleven says, I saw. And then she sees the sign, the closed gate sign that they made in the last episode from the Morse code on the table next to Will. Joyce says, you opened this gate once before, right? And Eleven says, yes. And then Joyce says, if we get you back there, can you close it? And Eleven doesn't say anything, but she's just looking kind of determined. We cut to the gate itself as we see the army of Demodogs hang around the base of it, and one roars up to the sky. And that is the opening credits.
Ooh, okay, so let's talk about did Hopper do the right thing in keeping this secret for almost a whole year? Like, could he
Mhm.
have at least told Mike, hey, you can't see her, but she's alive? He could have said that.
Yeah.
Or did he do the right thing by keeping Mike in the dark so that if anybody pressed Mike on it, like, someone could have tried to infiltrate Mike's mind from the lab and, ask questions, and Mike would have genuinely said for the past year, she's gone. I don't know where he is. So what do you think? Did Hopper do the right thing?
It's so tough. I mean, in Hopper's defense, it worked. Like 11 was kept safe
Mm-hmm.
up until 11 herself decided to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then even when she left and found Kali, like that kind of comes into play here in this episode that
Mm-hmm.
she learned things there with her that she needed to learn. And who knows what would have happened if Hopper didn't have such strict rules that kind of forced her. to rebel. Um, and yeah, I think he probably did do the right thing.
Yeah.
Um, as hard as it is to admit that it is, I mean, yeah,
And the other question related to that is, when Eleven kind of breaks out onto her own, we remember that she sees Mike and Max interacting in the gymnasium,
yeah,
and
she has a reason not to like Max.
but she just
Or she
immediately
thinks she
gets
does.
jealous.
Yeah,
We can tell it's jealousy. Um, Not that she has the mental capacity or emotional relational experience to bring this up, but she could have, I don't know, any time in the past 350 some days, she could have snuck out, confronted Mike about it, what she saw, and then found out the truth that no, Mike wasn't really into this girl, and that could have once again, secrets just ruin this town. If don't just assume things,
yeah,
tell your friends everything, because secrets or misunderstandings just can really mess a lot of
yeah.
things up.
I mean, the one thing that she could have done is, despite Hopper's strict rules, she could have reached out to Mike maybe on a radio or something.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, anything like that might have led to something, some really terrible end.
yep.
So
Especially if the lab was still listening in on
yes,
radio
oh
calls,
gosh,
like if who we have no way of knowing whether or not they still were at this point listening in.
yeah, man, that's tough. It's tough to admit, but I think he did do the right. It's funny. It's a good question to consider because I hadn't done that. All right, a very weird scene here.
Yeah.
Karen is in the bathtub at the Wheeler's house, just candles lit. She's written a romance novel. She's very
Mhm.
salty looking. Ted is just asleep in the dark down the stairs, and the doorbell rings, and Ted's not going to get it. Karen allows enough time to pass to realize she's the only one who can get the door. So she puts on a robe and goes down and answers the door in just a robe, and it's Billy, and he puts all the moves on Karen. I won't go into huge detail here because I don't think it's super important to the plot, but he's just suave and starts flirting with her. She takes the bait. She's just so flattered and is just kind of like, she's so ready to give herself to Billy. It's disgusting.
Yep.
Billy tells her that essentially the whole point is that Billy's looking for Max. Karen essentially gives him directions to the buyer's house, and Billy peels away from the Wheeler's house with Karen just looking a fool
Yeah, Billy is already in his mind dressed to the nines
for a date.
for a date.
Yeah.
So he's got the deep V going on. So he's already,
He's got cologne down his pants. Like he's
yeah, so he's already kind of revved up on a date that he doesn't get to go on. And then
yeah,
when Miss Wheeler answers the door looking, you know, just post bathing, Billy just
yeah,
takes advantage of that. And yeah, it's
yeah.
gross.
Calls Karen Nancy's sister and just pours it on.
Yeah.
It's yeah. But suffice it to say, Billy has been given directions to the buyer's house to go find Max.
Yep.
All right, next scene back at the buyer's house in the kitchen, the kids and Hopper and Joyce, through some discussion, realize that 11 can close the gate. 11 says that he can. But by doing that, it will kill Will because Will's a part of the Mind Flayer's army. So
Mm-hmm.
there's some discussion, but they get to that conclusion. Joyce discovers that Will and the Mind Flayer like it cold, or she remembers that. As she
Mm-hmm.
goes into Will's room, she sees the door open. Will's without a shirt. And Joyce says kind of the plan they develop is to, quote, burn it out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Mike says, yes, but it has to be somewhere far away that Will could never know where he was. Like, we really need to be better this time about making sure that we're somewhere Will can never find out where he is. So
Mm-hmm.
Hopper picks up Will in the blanket and gives directions to Jonathan out to his remote cabin as they load up and they head towards the cabin. Hopper says, you let me know when that thing is out of him because Jonathan is taking Will to his cabin. Hopper is not going to the cabin. He and 11 are going somewhere else, presumably to the lab. to close the gate and the two parties part ways.
Yep. So, yeah, they're treating whatever is possessed Will like an actual virus and saying, okay, if Will's the host, we want to make his body unsuitable for this virus. Kind of like breaking a fever when you're a kid. Like you can
Yep.
kind of tell when the sickness is over. So it's an interesting idea to like try to get this sickness or thing out of him. But I don't know how much we've talked about the creation of the gate. Like, what
Mm.
was it about that moment with Eleven back in the lab, way back when she was terrified in her watery confinement? Like, what was it that actually did she actually open it on purpose because she was so threatened by the lab workers, or did she open it on purpose, or was it just a byproduct of her fear while she was in deprivation?
Um, to this point, we think that it's totally accidental
Yeah,
just by throwing, you know, kind of throwing her energy into nothing. She didn't really even know she was doing. Now,
right.
in season four, we get a better answer to that, as I remember, and I don't remember exactly what it is.
Okay.
So
I don't either.
I couldn't even spoil it for the audience fully if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Do get a better um, answer to that, but even to this point, she did open it, but it was kind of accidental just through the energy that she had. So,
But
but she does feel like she can close it.
as a result of her time away with Collie, it's as if she's kind of honed her powers, and that's what's given her the confidence to say,
Yeah.
I think I can close it now.
She
Because
does
she,
look, yeah, very confident when she says, like, no, you
yeah,
don't understand. I can do it.
yeah, a country 11 couldn't have closed the gate, but a bitchin' 11
Yes.
probably can close the gate.
Yeah,
So,
the powers in the eye makeup.
yeah,
Um, so we're back at the buyer's house. Nancy and Jonathan are, sorry, Nancy and Steve, I should have said. Nancy and Steve are rummaging through the contents of the shed. They find a space heater, and Steve tells Nancy to go with Jonathan. Like, you should go with him.
yeah,
And Nancy's like, no, why would I go with him? And he's like, Nancy, it's okay. So the whole gist of this scene is that Jonathan is essentially giving his blessing to Nancy, like, it's okay. I might have been a terrible boyfriend, but I'm actually a pretty good babysitter. So I'll stay here with the other kids and you go with Jonathan.
hmm
Um, Mike and Eleven are inside. They kind of say their goodbyes as they part ways on their different missions. Mike tells her to be careful. I can't lose you again. It's a very emotional
hmm
scene. He's
hmm
just seen Eleven and then like 30 minutes later is saying goodbye to her again.
hmm
Jonathan and Nancy leave their direction with Will in tow, and Hopper and Eleven leave to the lab. Steve and the other kids are just kind of watching them drive off from the porch of the buyer's house, and Mike looks off worried as Eleven drives away with Hopper.
Yeah. Once again, another scene where we just appreciate Steve's character. Like
Yeah,
he's giving his blessing on to his ex-girlfriend on her new oh, it's not even a relationship at this point, kind of like how Murray said, Jonathan and Nancy, you guys have had shared trauma, so it's not just a normal relationship. Like this
yeah,
type of shared trauma makes you a unusually connected pair, and Steve recognizes that and blesses it and
yeah,
sends her on his way, essentially. I mean, that's how I took it, was like
yeah,
Steve taking the high road once again, being a good guy and not making things any more difficult for Nancy, not drawing attention to himself, like or playing a victim of like, oh, he just
yeah.
blesses the situation and sends her on her way.
And in so doing, he's also showing himself to be super self-aware to
Hmm
say, look, maybe I'm not the kind of suave, debonair boyfriend type for you. Actually, turns out I'm pretty good at dealing with these kids that are so much younger than me. And a bit of humility to say, like, no, I understand my role and I'm good with it.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so then as Hopper and Eleven drive away in Hopper's truck, Hopper's like, what are we not even going to talk about this? Like, where were you? Why do you look like this MTV punk kid?
Uh-huh.
And he presses her on where she was, and she says, I went to see Mama. And Hopper's like,
Mm.
okay. how'd you get there? And through a bunch of pressing, 11 admits that she went to see her in a truck, a big truck owned by a nice man. And through all of this questioning, Hopper's like, so let me get this straight. A nice man in a big truck took you to see Mama, and then what? Aunt Becky just gave you all this clothes and makeup. And 11 changes the subject, and she's like, I shouldn't have left. Hopper apologized. He's like, no, I should have been there. I shouldn't have lied to you about your mom. And Hopper just kind of gets really introspective here and just like bears his soul about all of his shortcomings and tells her about Sarah. And Eleven's like, "Who's that?" And he realizes that he's kind of let that out of the bag. And he talks about this black hole. Like he feels like he's a black hole that just kind of like tragedy just kind of finds him,
Yep.
and admits that maybe that's why he was so strict with her, is that he was just so worried that the black hole would find her too or take her too,
Yep.
like it did with Sarah. And he's just like, I couldn't lose you too.
Hmm.
They reach across the bench. They're in the front seat and they hold hands. And they kind of come clean to each other as they share a nice moment where Hopper tells her like, "Hey, by the way, I don't mind this new look here." And 11 goes, "Bitchin'," and Hopper's like, "Okay, yeah, bitchin'." So they kind of make amends there, and
Yeah.
a sweet moment.
Back to back scenes of our characters being vulnerable and it just paying off. Like every time they lower their defenses and admit their character flaws, it just unites them as a family or as friends or as a party. Like it really was a great moment.
Yeah, and Hopper lets his guard down from the parental kind of,
Yep.
hey, you shouldn't have left, and all these strict rules, and just kind of
Hmm.
levels with her in a really sweet way.
Yeah.
Um, Back at the buyer's house, Dustin empties the fridge of like everything and the shelves and everything,
Yeah.
and tells Steve like, no, we can't just let this. And Steve's holding this demo dog in this blanket, and Dustin is so proud of himself that this is going to be some massive scientific discovery. He's like, we can't just bury this thing like a common animal.
Right.
Funny moment there. The others are cleaning up, and from all the glass that's everywhere and all this stuff that's happened. Mike is so worried about 11 walking into the lab, and Steve tells them that they're not going anywhere. Mike is
Mm.
like urgent to leave and do something, and Steve's like, no, 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 no. You guys are my responsibility. I'm not letting anything happen to you.
Yep.
Mike finally comes up with a plan to distract the demo dogs to clear a path for 11 to the gate by going to the tunnels and lighting a fire. Mike
Mm.
is not listening to Steve at all. Steve does just put his foot down and say they're not going anywhere. They're interrupted because we hear Billy peel into the buyer's driveway in that Camaro.
Mm.
And Steve goes out to confront or to meet Billy. Billy gets out, and they are confronted to each other. They're outside of the buyer's house. Steve lies that Max is not there. Billy doesn't believe him, and Billy kind of accuses him like, my little sister's missing, and I find her here with the strange in a strange house with you, and you're lying about it.
Yep.
And Steve is like, I don't know what, they're very like, it's such a bro argument. And finally Billy's like, then who's that? And Billy has been looking out the picture window, and Steve is like, oh, you know. So Billy knocks him to the ground. Billy bursts in to see Lucas, the wrong guy to see, grabs him and throws him into a corner, super physical with him, yells at him to not, mess around with Max anymore. And Lucas finally kicks him off of him, and Steve
In the
pushes
nuts.
right in the nuts. And Steve pushes Billy, and they begin a real fist fight.
Mhm.
There are broken plates, bloody faces. Billy finally kind of gets the upper hand on Steve and just starts absolutely pummeling him, just one fist after the other, and Steve is in a bad way. Max, desperate, finds a syringe of Will's sleepy medicine that they've been giving him and just stabs Billy right in the neck with the syringe. And Billy's like, "What's going on?" And he's hearing double, and finally like falls to the ground. He's laughing a bit. Um, and Max grabs the spiked bat while Billy's on the ground and tells Billy to leave them alone and makes Billy say that he will. Like,
Mhm.
say that he will. and she swings the bat and lands it like right between his legs. And Billy is kind of incapacitated there, admits that he will leave them alone, and then Max grabs the Camaro keys and says, "Let's get out of here," to the other kids.
Yep. So this is the end of that with Max taking control, which totally makes sense because she feels abused by him. It's a throwback to when they were in the car and Max, under her breath, says it's Billy's fault, but then Billy wants
Yep.
Max to say it. No, 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 it's your fault. Say
Yep.
it. Say it's your fault.
Yep.
Um, it's interesting to think like if we liked Billy, if all these people liked Billy, if Billy had any character or morals, maybe they would have let him in on what's going on at this point. Like the fight would have been over as soon as they open the fridge and go, "This is bigger than all of us.
Yeah.
You either leave now or you're about to get involved." But because nobody likes Billy, partially his fault, maybe because of the way he's raised, he's not let in on what's going on. And Steve tries to put up that cover, doesn't work. So the only way to end the situations, sadly, is violence again.
That's a great point. And actually, keep that thought as we go into season three.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we cut to Jonathan and Nancy and Joyce find their way to Hopper's cabin, and they bring in Will still asleep.
Mm-hmm.
They bring a bed into the middle of the room and set up a fire in the stove, like a wood burning stove they've got, and they plug in all the space heaters that they found. Will is seen tied up in that bed, and Joyce is just very resolved, like, we're going to kill this thing
Yep.
and burn the mind flare out of him. And they turn on all the heaters.
That just the thought of that makes me I gotta turn up the air a little bit, and I'm just getting hot thinking about this scene. Like I gotta get the hair out of my face. Whew! Yeah, man. This scene is like it borders on child abuse here in a minute, but it's like
Yeah.
it's intense here in a second.
Yeah. So we're just seeing the setup there. Hopper and Eleven now are at the lab. They've made their way. They hear growling of the monsters from the outside. 11 looks a little worried and has a brief flashback of some traumatic scenes from the lab, things that we've seen in the past, like the cat and the Coke can and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Hopper tells her to let him do the heavy lifting and to save her strength, but 11 just kind of blows right past him, right into the lab, and Hopper's like, "All right, here we go."
Yeah, man. I mean, of all the people who've experienced the most trauma, like the fact that Eleven just fixes herself on the task at hand and essentially knows that she has to put her head down and power through and just walk right back into her own personal torture chamber. Like
Yeah.
that building is her torture chamber. And she's just like, if I go in there, I have a chance of saving my friends. Amazing.
Yeah, she's so resolved. We cut right back to the Camaro Max is driving. Steve finally kind of wakes up from his beatdown. He's all bloodied and he realizes he's in the back seat of a car. He's seeing double and his ears are ringing. He thinks that Mike is Nancy. He realizes that Max is driving and then he kind of freaks out and panics. He's like, "Whoa, slow down. You know, I didn't agree to any of this." And Max eventually takes out a mailbox as she whips around a corner down the right street as they're headed to the tunnels.
Yeah, it's so funny when he kind of comes to how Dustin tries to comfort him. Like
Yeah.
Dustin's just so sarcastic and like I don't know,
Yeah.
man, little brother, but also he had to be the big brother in that moment because Steve's so incapacitated. It was
Yeah.
really funny.
He tries to make Steve feel better about putting up
Yeah,
a like, yeah, you got your ass beat, but hey, you put up a good fight. It's okay.
so funny. Trying to comfort him like psychologically in the moment.
Um, all right, we're back at the cabin, and Mike or Will finally wakes up with all the heat and from the stove and the heaters, and he immediately begins panicking and yelling. He's like, "It hurts! It hurts! What are you doing?" Joyce remembers Bob. She has a little flashback of Bob and the demo dogs, and she goes over and turns up the heaters. Jonathan just turns away right into Nancy's arms because he just can't watch it.
Yep.
We cut back to Max and the others. They finally make their way to the hole where Hopper entered the tunnels, and Max peels into the Camaro and stops and says, "See, I told you, Zoomer." Great scene. Steve tries to gain control, but the others are not listening to him. Dustin tells him the plan and tells Steve to keep them safe. They enter the tunnels and work from a rudimentary map, and Mike tells them which direction to go towards this hub that they're looking for. Steve finally takes the lead, and they work their way through the tunnels.
There's a couple things I loved about this. Finally, Mike turns a corner with Max. Because, like, after Max gets them to where they need to be, I think Mike says, incredible. Like,
Yeah.
finally, Mike is like appreciative of Max's role in this group. And it really is like a kind of a corner turning moment. Like, let's go. There was one scene, either this one or the one before, where it might have been when she takes out the mailbox, but like I think Lucas is the screamer when he gets scared. And if you
Yeah.
listen really close, there's the most high-pitched scream because they're scared. And I think it was Lucas and not
Yeah.
anybody else. So yeah, man, we're on the way now.
Hopper and Eleven make their way through the lab inside, and they discover Dr. Owens in a stairwell, and he's gotten bitten by a demo dog, or he fell, or he's injured in a stairwell.
Yep.
If it was a demo dog, they left him alone after they bit him or whatever. But um, we think that Dr. Owens got bitten by a demo dog. Hopper wraps him in a tourniquet, and he introduces Eleven to him, and he proposes to Dr. Owens that if she saves them, maybe he could help her lead a normal life.
Yeah.
Just something you should think about. And he kind of pulls the tourniquet tight and says, "Don't go anywhere." And then they leave him and continue on.
Yeah. We don't know if this is the first that Dr. Sam has even seen Eleven in person, but it's a pretty interesting scene where an escapee returns to their prison in front of someone who has a not a right, but has a reason to detain her, but he's obviously Dr. Owens is not in a shape to do anything
Yeah.
about 11 anyway. So yeah, it's very
And
interesting.
not even sure if he would have, like if he was a part of the regime that would think of her as an escaped test subject.
Yeah,
But yeah, Hopper's like, maybe you could not poke and prod her and subject her to all these experiments.
yeah.
But they leave Dr. Owens to consider that with the tourniquet on. Um, Max, they're all the kids are in the tunnels, and Max is like, "What is this place?"
Mm.
Dustin gets sprayed by one of those spouts, and he panics and he freaks out, and we're like, "Oh no, he's gotten got." But then he's like, "I'm okay." It's a great little brief levity here in this very serious episode.
Yeah,
Now, finally, they find their way to the hub, this room that they were looking for, and they go about dumping gasoline everywhere. As they do that, in that time back at the cabin, Will is just thrashing around in the heat and so much pain. Jonathan wants to call it off, but Joyce is determined. This is what you were talking about with the child abuse. Jonathan's like, "You're gonna kill him,"
yeah,
and Joyce is like, "No, I'm not gonna give up." Nancy finally points out that something is happening in his neck. He starts to see this black kind of veins.
yeah,
Will breaks free from his restraints and just grabs Joyce by the throat with all the power of the mind flayer behind it.
yeah. In a hot room like a sauna or something, you don't complain about being in pain. So that's how we know that they're on to something by trying to fire and heat and warm this thing out of Will's body. Like you don't say you're in pain just because you're hot. Like it's a
Yeah.
weird thing. It's a weird way to react to that situation.
Yeah. And I mean, it harkens back to when Joyce tried to give Will that bath that one time, and he was like, I can't, it's too hot.
Yep,
I think they realize yeah, and they're doing it the right way. They're not, you know, he's not so hot that he's going to be in physical danger. Like the rest of them are all sweaty, but they're fine.
exactly.
Um, and something is happening to Will that they want to happen to him.
Yep.
But now the mind flayer has Joyce by the throat, and it's a
Woo.
dangerous situation. Back at the lab, Hopper tells Eleven to stay where she is as he investigates a hallway. He goes around the corner and sees many demo dogs in a room and investigates them by like shining a mirror, like a knife mirror,
Hmm.
in the corner so they don't see him. And 11 hears them from a distance and she looks a little bit concerned. We cut immediately back to the tunnels and Steve grabs a Zippo lighter. Immediately back at the cabin, Will continues to have Joyce by the throat. Nancy finally pulls a red hot probe out of the stove
Hmm.
and stabs Will in the side with it, and he releases Joyce. Back at the lab, Hopper rounds the corner into this room with the demo dogs and sees the portal wall in the distance with the demo dogs in front of it. Back at the cabin, Joyce yells at the mind flayer. Back at the tunnels, the fire is lit with all the gasoline. Back at the cabin, Will is thrashing about more and more as the tunnels now burn and the kids are running towards the exit in the tunnels. Will finally begins shedding the mind flayer out of his mouth. It's just this black kind of smoke, the same kind of thing we saw when it entered him. And it's finally out of him. It exits the cabin, it breaks through the door, and it's out into the night sky. I think Nancy runs out onto the porch and kind of watches it like fly away.
Yeah.
They all turn off the heaters, and Will is seen seemingly lifeless in the bed. Joyce is pleading for him to wake up. He finally opens his eyes and he's like, Mom? And they hug.
Probably the most intense scene up until this point in all the
Yeah,
season or in all the episodes, because
I
it's
think
like
so.
again, the kid that plays Will, like they're asking a lot of him to like, okay, before you portrayed a kid who's being possessed by something, now we need you to portray someone who's being dispossessed by a mind flayer. What could you do? And the kid, it's just like it's so believable. It's like it takes having being jabbed in the side with a fire tong or prong to like that's the final straw for the mind flayers, and he then finds Will's body an unsuitable host, and it just kind of looks like Will vomits out this mind flayer. Oh my gosh, it's so intense.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, just the cut of this scene where
Hmm.
we're watching all this stuff happen in real time with the lighter and 11 and Hopper in the lab and Will in the cabin. And like, it really shows the storytelling that like they are all on the same mission
Yes.
together in tandem in three different locations.
And the timing matters.
Yeah. And when Will finally is free from this thing, it reminds me, if you're familiar with the Lord of the Rings scene when Gandalf rids King Theoden of Sauron's possession, and it's like you just see him come back to life, and he
Mm,
says to Joyce, like, "Mom," almost as if like, What are you doing here?"
yeah.
When he just a second ago had her by the throat.
Yeah.
Wild scene. Um, all right, so immediately after this happens, Jonathan calls Hopper on the radio. Jonathan's in the cabin, Hopper's in the lab, calls him on the radio and says, "Close it." 11 and Hopper descend the elevator to the gate that we've seen so many times. The kids are still exiting the tunnels, running and running, like they know they got to get out of there after lighting this fire. Mike gets caught by a vine and kind of gets knocked down. Back at the lab, the elevator stops. They're kind of at a place where they're right in front of the gate, and 11 raises her hand, like we've seen, and begins kind of working on closing the gate. Um, Behind the gate, we see the Mind Flayer silhouette as if he knows exactly what's happening behind the gate. Mike continues yelling in the tunnels as Steve finally chops the vine off of him and he's free. They are stopped from their exit by Dart. The demo dog is in their path and they freak out. They're panicking. Dustin takes charge, like, "Hey, guys, it's Dart. He trusts me," and is like, trying to bribe him like a dog with Three Musketeers. And eventually he like screams at Dustin, and Dustin's like, "All right, I'm sorry about the storm cellar," but Eventually, Dart lets them all pass as he's just content with the peace offering of the Three Musketeers.
Hmm.
They all kind of pass. Back at the lab, 11 continues trying closing the gate. She closes her eyes. She's not making much progress, and she remembers Kali's advice from the train car incident and is like channeling her anger and tells her, to think of all these bad things. And we cut back to 11, and she's kind of making progress now on the gate. As the gate closes, the kids in the tunnels hear the demo dogs coming. Like they're running, the demo dogs are trying to run towards the gate, and the kids are running faster now. Some of the kids get out of the exit there in the field, but Dustin and Steve are still kind of under the tunnels when the demo dogs all are running, and they just run right past them as
Hmm.
if they're not even there. They're running to try to get back to the gate, and Mike realizes from the top he's been out, and he realizes what's happening, and he goes 11, as if like it's working. Back at the lab, 11 is making great progress on the gate as demo dogs are climbing up the walls and the elevator shaft and everything. And Hopper has some sort of really high powered, like shotgun rifle, and is
Hmm.
just kind of picking them off. He's not killing them, he's just knocking them off the wall to just make more space for 11.
Hmm.
11 continues to work on the gate as she pants and she's really exerting a lot of energy. She remembers Dr. Brenner and her remorse for opening the gate. She remembers Brenner saying that she has a wound that's festering. She is cycling through memories of Mama and then everything that's happened to her. And she raises her second hand now, and she's got both hands up and begins yelling, and then her feet rise from the floor of the elevator. She's levitating now, and the lights around the town we see in different places around town are all surging, like the headlights of the Camaro, and the lights in the cabin are all surging brighter and brighter as she uses all of her might and all of her power to finally close the gate fully, and it seals itself closed, and the demo dogs are lying lifeless as Hopper and 11 hug, and she tells her, or Mike or Hopper tells 11 like what a great job she did, and the job is done.
Another just back to back. I mean, you expect it with a season closer, but just back to back, such intense scenes. Um, it's strange that like there's this even with facing the upside down, there's also an in between where the mind flayer can't come into the real world, but the demo dogs seemingly can exist in the real world, in the in between, and probably in the upside down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because like it's
Demo
so
dogs have some sort of physical presence that the mind flayer doesn't.
yes,
Here.
yes. So and like you said, the demo dogs came running back to because they knew that there was an attack on the gate. Uh and they were drawn away by the fire from the gate to give 11 a little bit of time to do her thing, but then they knew they were under attack. It just the timing of everything, it worked out, absolutely perfectly.
Yeah.
Um yeah, just when when she levitates, like her
Yeah.
power, yeah, it was just all of a sudden, it's like, okay, this is the most powerful superhero we've seen up until this point. Like that
Yeah.
she's the savior of the Hawkins at the moment.
And it kind of, for me, it kind of redeems the Lost Sister episode. Even if you were among those, like myself, the first time I watched it, that really hated that episode, like, what was the point of that? It's
Yeah.
like in this scene when she's levitating and using all this power and recalling all these things that Kali helped her with.
Yep.
Like, I don't know that she could have closed the gate before meeting Kali and kind of building the confidence through meeting her and kind of having her channel those powers, and at the same time doing something that was so outside of her comfort zone, I think redeems that episode to feel like she wouldn't have been able to do this.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
really good point. Like most of Eleven's existence and interaction with bad guys has been in the moment that she takes care of business and uses her mind to like
Yeah,
end somebody. But this
almost like an
was
impulse.
impulse of reaction. But this was a situation where, because of Collie's influence, Eleven channeled a lot of past trauma to affect her abilities and her power in that moment. So yeah, like you said, it absolutely makes sense that she wouldn't have known how to channel that much righteous anger, I think,
Yeah.
into this situation without Collie's help.
And it is almost too like you said, righteous anger. It is almost too like a its own superpower that her virtue in this scene is, you know, like at the end of the last season, potentially sacrificing herself for her friends, sacrificing all of the things that she was tempted by in that Lost Sister episode.
Mm,
It's almost as if because she's acting out of this virtuous intent, it's almost like that amplifies her powers in closing the gate. That it really is a good versus evil situation where she's not just powerful, she's also a powerful good that is, like I said, amplifying these psionic abilities that she has to do good by closing this gate.
yeah, yep,
That's a sweet moment as Hopper and Eleven just embrace in that elevator.
yep.
Uh, all right, so that's the big closing, pretty much closing scene of the season. There's a bit of a gap in the cut. It's not a quick cut. And the next thing we see is kind of a slow fade in of chains on a double door situation. And a guy leaves that chained door. They get into a military vehicle, they drive away, and we see 1 month later. And the lab is being boarded up and chained as we hear a news story from a anchor read about how the lab was discovered to have hidden Barb's death. And they share all the details in this story that Murray and Nancy and Jonathan kind of concocted themselves, watering the truth down
Hmm.
about chemicals that leaked from the lab and blah blah blah. We see finally a funeral for Barb, and my favorite scene maybe in this whole episode is Murray sitting in a lawn chair at the exit of the lab, just waving as all these military vehicles come out. One of the military guys flips him off,
Yep.
and he's just so happy that it worked. He's seen laughing as the guys exit the lab. It's so funny. Um, and then we cut to a different scene of sometime in that short distance afterwards. Hopper meets Dr. Owens at probably the same bar that he met O'Bannon at. And they're sitting at a table, and Dr. Owens offers him his sandwich. And he's like, no, I'm on a diet. Turning a new leaf for Jim Hopper.
Hmm.
And Sam hands Hopper an envelope with a birth certificate that says Jane Hopper. And uh, Hopper is thankful, but Dr. Owens tells Hopper what he didn't want to hear, which is, I'd still cool off for a little bit. I wouldn't, risk letting her be seen in public, blah, blah, blah. And Hopper's like, well,
Hmm.
how long? And he goes, probably about a year. And Hopper's like, it's been a year. I gotta wait another year. And then he just grabs the sandwich off the table and starts eating it. It's so great. And Hopper's like, well, what about one night out? And Dr. Owens is kind of confused about that. But then we hear Christmas music and we
Hmm.
cut to the middle school dance, the snowball.
Yep. So had Jonathan, Nancy, and Murray sent everything they knew to all these newspapers, they would have been dismissed.
Right.
It just wouldn't have been covered that way by the news. But because they did what they did and they watered down the truth, at the same time, the lab actually had a personal crisis of the demo dogs killing everybody. It was the perfect opportunity for the lab to close up and they could say, "Oh yeah, all of our people inside also just died." I assume that they probably said everyone's inside's dead because the same gas that killed Barbara leaked out to our lab. It was the perfect opportunity
Great point.
for Barb's parents to get closure, even though they didn't have the full truth. It was the perfect opportunity for Murray to feel victorious and that he thought that there was no good happening here in this lab, so it needs shut down anyway. It was just like, again, only most people are still in the dark about this lab, but now everyone's minds are put to ease about what's been going on there because it was just leaking chemicals, and
Yep.
now the lab's done. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is an interesting case of the ends justifying the means. Like, it didn't matter how truthful this story was, just that it brought about this end,
Yep.
and it worked.
Yep.
And it's great. And I love uh the fact that Barb's parents got closure. And I'm curious to know, obviously we don't find out, if Murray tells them the truth underneath the table. But
I would assume he doesn't
yeah,
because Murray is in a different type of the know. He's in the know about like it's as parents, it's not going to do them any good to find out about this supernatural upside down. Like
yeah.
all they need to move on is a type of closure, and they got that. They probably were rewarded a big settlement from the government, and like
Yeah, that's probably a good point.
probably that fact and the settlement, if it happened, probably put a bow on the situation, and they don't need to know anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, they probably got to keep their house.
Oh yeah, that's true.
All right, so the heavy lifting of the scene is over, but the final scene is the kids are all getting ready at their homes. Again, we see a video camera filming Joyce and Will dancing at their house.
Yep.
Dustin is using his Farrah Fawcett spray from Steve's advice earlier. Steve drops Dustin off at the snowball, which is hilarious, and Steve gives him a word of advice about ladies and blah blah blah. And after Dustin gets out, Steve catches a glimpse of Nancy inside, uh, looking very pretty in her dance attire, but Steve drives away.
Yeah.
A lot happens in this scene, but very little of it is actually detrimental to the plot. Lucas and Max are dancing together. Will has a dance partner, but Dustin goes around and just gets shut down everywhere by every girl he asks, which is super demoralizing to him because he thinks he looks like hot stuff. He
Right.
thinks that he's going to walk in this gym like Steve Harrington because he used his special, routine on his hair, and he just gets shut down time and time again, and he's crying finally off to the side, and Nancy sees it, and Nancy comes up to him and asks him to dance with her. And Dustin is trying to hide his tears, but he knows that Nancy sees, and he's blown away. And he's so flattered by Nancy as they dance. The other girls are watching in shock, like Dustin's dancing with Nancy Wheeler. And Nancy is trying to calm Dustin down, tells Dustin that of all of Will's friend or all of Mike's friends, Dustin is her favorite. Calms him by saying girls at this age are just dumb, but give them time.
Amen.
Outside the dance, Hopper and Joyce share their own little moment as they chat and they share a cigarette. And Hopper hugs Joyce as she's grieving. Uh, Mike is sitting by himself back inside because he doesn't have a partner because Eleven's not there. But then the door opens to the gym and 11 walks in wearing her simple little dress, and she's super cute. And Mike stands to meet her, and they meet on the dance floor. And we cut back and forth between Lucas and Max kissing, and finally 11 and Mike kiss. And Dustin's dancing with Nancy, and all is right with the world where the snowball is happening. We hear Jingle Bell Rock and blah blah blah. We
Yep.
pan out of the school, and as we get outside the school, we see Hawkins slowly flip upside down as the last shot we see of the season is the Hawkins Middle School in the upside down,
Whew.
lightning flashing, silhouetting the mind flayer hovering right over the school. End of season 2.
Textbook cliffhanger. Like just like can't we just end it on a high note and all's right in the world? No. It's the most brilliant zoom out camera trick. I mean, it's not really a trick, but just the cinematography, the choice of as they zoom out of the school literally just turns and it becomes the upside down. Oh my gosh. I can still remember the feels from the first time I saw that. I was like,
Yeah.
all right, you guys got me. Here's my Netflix money. Here's
Yeah.
when's the next season coming out?
Yeah.
Um, I had personally for this scene, I had all the feels of being in junior high again.
Yeah.
Like it's the dances, wanting to dance with certain girls who didn't want to dance with you, and then getting the feeling that some girls wanted to dance with you that you didn't want to dance with. Just like this, just totally junior high thing, but at the time, it's the most real deep feelings in the world.
Yeah. You're right.
Like like seeing a girl dance with someone else, like when Dustin has to see that Lucas and Max they're probably an item now. There's really no hiding it, and Dustin just has to see that and take it in. Like
Yeah.
I, not that that happened to me all the time, but I felt for Dustin the most in that scene. Like seeing the girl that you had the biggest crush on dancing with somebody else. Like all
Yeah.
the feels this scene.
Yeah. For me, it was being told no to. I asked a girl to go with me to a. We didn't do a dance at my Christian school, but we did a similar kind of thing.
Yeah.
Asked her to go with me, and she said, "No, I'm not going at all." And
Oh
then
no.
found out that not only was she going, but she was going with like a good friend of mine. And I was like, "Okay,
Yeah. I mean, the scene it 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 just makes all of these characters so much more human to us. And again, like
yeah,
as kids born in the 80s, you and I, even though, theoretically this happened 10 years before we would have been going to dances and such, but or even more than that, it's still just like, okay, these are just kids. Like,
yeah,
they're dealing with all the kid stuff too, in addition to all the supernatural stuff.
yeah." It definitely humanizes them because we've seen them in this, massive fight and battle. I mean, we just saw all this crazy supernatural stuff, these psionic abilities, the mind flayer exiting Will and all this stuff. And then at the end of the day,
Yeah.
at the end of the season, it's like, yeah, they're just kids in a 1980s small town in Indiana,
Yeah.
which I think makes the ending scene or the ending shot so important. It's like they don't let us forget what the stakes are. Like they kind of lull us to sleep, lull us into a false sense of security with this snowball scene and all
Yeah.
these like human elements, and then we zoom out and it's like, oh yeah, there's still this problem, which it was actually genius of them to do because you might think at the end of season two that that's it. The lab
Yeah.
is closed. Like Hopper has adopted 11. The demo dogs are dead. There's no Demogorgon anymore. The
Yeah.
mind flayer has been shut off from this dimension. Will has kind of been made whole. The kids are together. You might think like this could be the end of the entire series,
Yeah.
but they had to do something at the end to remind you that like there's more to this story to be told.
Yep. I well, yeah. I just remember like it's one of those things where you almost wish you were someone who discovered the series this year so that for you could see
Right.
everything for the first time and not have to wait for the final answers coming to us this fall. So it's like,
Yeah.
ugh.
It's become such a popular cultural thing though. It would be nice if it was something that was like kind of underground and small and had a cult following that you didn't
Yeah.
really hear anything about. And then you're like, guys, you won't believe I just found this show on Netflix called Stranger Things. You gotta watch it. But now it's become so much a part of the pop culture.
Yeah.
It's hard to come into it now. But I agree with you. It'd be really nice.
And at the same time, like I remember rewatching season one multiple times, preparing for season two, and I watched season two a couple times to prepare for season three. But I think I only watched season three once. And
I did
as I
too.
sit here, I have no, other than a mall, I have no clue what's about to happen. It's like, what I need
Yeah.
to find out right now.
Well, and it's really interesting how they filmed just the space that had to happen between. I mean, season one was 2016. Season two is 2017. I mean, there's like bang bang.
Yep.
And season three was 2019. So the kids are a little bit older. There's 2 years in between. But then COVID happened and then the strike happened. And then like season four came out. 2022, 3 years later, and then now we're 3 years later yet again before
Yeah.
season five.
Yep.
So, but I remember like thinking at the end of this, like, where do we go from here? Like, what is going to happen to Hawkins now that the gate is closed? Obviously, the Mind Flayer is still around. There's still such a thing as an upside down. But like I said, it feels like everything's wrapped up, and yet we know that there's more of the story to be told. Where do we go?
I mean, surely season three starts like at the snowball. Like, I assume it's like, all right, let's pick up where we left off and still in Indiana and
Yeah.
kids are dancing and maybe Will senses something's not right. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, I am thankful that like you said, season three's already been released back in
Yeah.
2019, 6 years ago already.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to wait. We can just take the time now and we can find out exactly what happened in season three.
Like as in right now?
As in right now.
Let me
I
see
mean,
what time it is.
we
Oh
just
yeah, I've got time.
we just gained an hour through daylight savings time
That's
and
true. We should at least just watch one episode. Like if we watch season three, episode one right now, we'll know.
yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
no.
Well, on that note, stay tuned because we will see the rest of you for season three here on the Hawkins Observer.